The crack echoed through the hallway like a gunshot, followed immediately by the unmistakable sound of plastic and glass skittering across polished linoleum. Maya's world instantly transformed into a blur of colors and shapes as her glasses, the ones her mother had worked extra shifts to afford, lay shattered on the floor. The laughter came next, high and cruel, bouncing off metal lockers and seeping into her bones like winter cold. "Oops," said Amber, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Did I do that?" She stood above Maya, a blurry silhouette flanked by her ever-present entourage. Though Maya couldn't see their faces clearly, she knew exactly what expressions they wore. The same contemptuous smirks they'd perfected over the years of tormenting her. Maya dropped to her knees, fingers desperately searching for the fragments of her only window to a clear world. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she felt the presence of her tormentors circling like sharks that had smelled blood in the water. Someone's foot, deliberately, she knew, slid across the floor, sending a lens spinning further away. "Maybe if you weren't such a freak, people would actually like you," Amber continued, her words cutting deeper than the frame that had snapped against Maya's face moments earlier. "Four eyes can't see without her glasses. Oh wait, now you're just no eyes." A chorus of laughter followed, and Maya felt her cheeks burn with humiliation as other students paused to witness her degradation. No one stepped forward. No one offered help. Some even joined in the laughter. It was safer that way, better to be part of the pack than its prey. Maya's fingers closed around the twisted metal frame, now bent beyond recognition. One lens was cracked from edge to edge. The other was missing entirely. She clutched the broken pieces to her chest as if they were precious, which in her world, a world where her mother counted pennies and skipped meals to keep the electricity on, they were. "Leave her alone," a voice finally called out, but it was too little, too late. The damage was done. Maya recognized the voice as belonging to Mr. Hernandez, her physics teacher, his footsteps hurrying down the hallway. "Everyone get to class now." The crowd dispersed like smoke, Amber and her friends sauntering away without consequence, their laughter lingering in the air like a toxic cloud. Maya felt Mr. Hernandez's hand on her shoulder, heard his kind words offering to help her to the nurse's office. But she shook her head. The last thing she needed was more attention, more pity, more evidence of her otherness. "I'm fine," she mumbled, though she was anything but. She stumbled to her feet, one hand against the wall for guidance, the other still clutching the remains of her glasses. "I can make it to class." "Maya." Mr. Hernandez's voice was gentle but firm. "This isn't okay. We need to report this to Principal Devlin." Again, Maya shook her head, more vigorously this time. "No, please. It'll just make it worse." She'd learned that lesson in middle school, when telling had transformed occasional teasing into systematic torment. "I just need to get to class." The rest of the day passed in a fog, quite literally. Maya squinted at the whiteboard, trying to decipher equations that swam before her eyes. She bumped into desks, dropped her lunch tray, and missed half the notes in history class. Each mishap was met with snickers and whispers that she couldn't see but could feel, prickling against her skin like needles. By the time the final bell rang, Maya's head pounded from the strain of trying to see and the effort of holding back tears. She navigated the hallways with one hand trailing along the wall, moving slowly as streams of students rushed past her, eager to begin their weekend. The walk home was treacherous. Without her glasses, every curb became a potential fall, every crossing a leap of faith. Cars blurred into moving smudges of color, forcing her to wait until streets were completely empty before daring to cross. What should have been a 20-minute walk stretched into nearly an hour of cautious navigation. When Maya finally reached the small apartment she shared with her mother, she was grateful to find it empty. Her mom wouldn't be home until after midnight. Friday nights at the diner were always busy, and she needed the tips. Maya was relieved. She couldn't bear to see the disappointment and worry that would cloud her mother's face when she learned about the glasses. In the bathroom, Maya finally allowed herself to look in the mirror. Her reflection was indistinct, but she could make out the redness around her eyes, the darkening bruise where the frame had struck her cheekbone. She held up the broken glasses, trying to assess the damage more thoroughly. The frame was bent at an unnatural angle, the remaining lens spiderwebbed with cracks. With trembling fingers, she opened the medicine cabinet and found a roll of clear adhesive tape. It wasn't the first time she'd had to make emergency repairs to her glasses, though never for damage this extensive, and she worked methodically, trying to piece together what remained. The result was ugly, the tape visible and bulky, the frame still slightly askew. When she put them on, the cracked lens distorted her vision worse than having no lens at all, but it was better than nothing. At least she could see shapes and avoid walking into traffic. Maya sank to the bathroom floor, back against the cool porcelain of the tub, and finally allowed the tears to come. They flowed silently at first, then built into body-racking sobs that echoed in the small space. She cried for the glasses, for the humiliation, for the unfairness of it all. But mostly, she cried because tomorrow would be exactly the same as today, and the day after that, and the day after that, an endless cycle of torment that she couldn't escape. As the tears subsided, leaving her hollow and exhausted, Maya's gaze fell on the small cabinet beneath the sink. Inside was a shoebox full of her father's belongings, the few personal items that hadn't been sold after his death 5 years ago. Her mother couldn't bear to look at them, but couldn't bring herself to throw them away either. Maya pulled out the box and lifted the lid. Among the items was a pair of her father's old reading glasses. They were too large for her face, the prescription all wrong for her eyes, but as she slipped them on, something of her father's presence seemed to envelop her. He had been an engineer, brilliant, innovative, always tinkering with some new invention in their garage. Before cancer took him at 38, he told Maya that the greatest power in the universe wasn't strength or beauty or even money. It was intelligence, applied with purpose. They can take everything else away from you, he'd said during one of their last conversations, his voice already weakened by disease and treatment. But they can't take what's in here. He tapped her forehead gently. What you know, what you can create, that's yours forever. Sitting on the bathroom floor, her father's oversized glasses sliding down her nose, Maya felt something shift inside her. A resolve crystallized, born from pain but hardened by a determination that felt new and yet somehow familiar. The same determination she'd seen in her father's eyes when he faced a particularly challenging problem. She replaced her father's glasses in the box and stood up. Decision made. They had broken her glasses, but they hadn't broken her. They never would. What Maya's tormentors didn't know, what no one at Westlake High knew, was that behind her quiet exterior and beneath those taped-together glasses burned a mind of extraordinary capability. The tiny bedroom she called her own wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a laboratory, a workshop, a sanctuary where she transformed from bullied sophomore to something else entirely. That Friday night, after taping her glasses together and finding temporary solace in her father's memory, Maya retreated to this private world. She pushed aside the faded curtain that separated her sleeping area from her workstation. A desk she'd rescued from a neighbor's curb and refinished herself. Spread across its surface was an organized chaos that would have bewildered her classmates. Circuit boards, microcontrollers, spools of wire, soldering equipment, and components salvaged from discarded electronics. Since she was 12, Maya had been teaching herself electrical engineering and computer programming. First through library books and later through free online courses she accessed on the ancient desktop computer she'd rebuilt from parts. While other teens posted selfies and navigated social hierarchies, Maya wrote code and designed circuits that could make ordinary objects perform extraordinary functions. She lowered herself into her chair, the weight of the day still heavy on her shoulders, and reached for the pair of broken glasses. Through the cracked lens, she examined them thoughtfully, turning them over in her hands. The bridge was snapped clean through, the temples bent at odd angles, one lens shattered and the other missing entirely. Her mother wouldn't be able to afford replacements until her next paycheck, which was still 2 weeks away. Maya sighed, setting the glasses down and rubbing her eyes. The headache that had built throughout the day pulsed behind her temples. She needed to see clearly to work on her latest project, a miniaturized environmental sensor she hoped to enter in the upcoming science fair. But with her glasses in this condition, detailed work would be impossible. As she sat there, frustrated and exhausted. Her gaze fell on a small box pushed to the corner of her desk. Inside were the components from her latest dumpster dive behind the local electronics store. Items deemed defective or outdated, tossed out rather than repaired or recycled. Among them was a pair of those novelty video glasses that had been popular a few years back, the kind with tiny LCD screens built into the lenses. Maya picked them up, examining the frame, which was intact but missing one of the display lenses. The electronics were likely fried. That's why they'd been discarded. But the frame itself was sturdy, with hinges that still functioned smoothly. An idea began to form, hazy at first but growing clearer by the second. What if she could not just repair her glasses, but transform them? Energized by the possibility, Maya pulled her desk lamp closer and reached for her tools. She carefully disassembled both pairs of glasses, laying out the components with methodical precision. Her father had taught her that before you could build something new, you had to understand exactly what you were working with. Hours passed as Maya worked, the apartment silent save for the occasional sound of cars passing on the street below. She forgot about her headache, forgot about Amber and her cruel friends, forgot about everything except the problem before her and the solution taking shape beneath her fingers. By the time her mother returned home, footsteps heavy with exhaustion on the stairs, Maya had managed to transplant her prescription lens into the sturdier frame. It wasn't pretty, electrical tape secured parts that didn't quite fit together, but it would allow her to see clearly enough to continue working. Maya! Her mother's voice called softly from the doorway. You're still up? It's almost 1 in the morning. Maya turned, offering a smile she hoped looked more confident than she felt. Just working on a project, Mom. How was work? Her mother's eyes, lined with the same weariness that had become a permanent feature since her father's death, immediately focused on the taped glasses perched on Maya's nose. Her expression shifted from tiredness to concern. What happened to your glasses? And your face? Is that a bruise? For a moment, Maya considered lying, saying she'd tripped, fallen, anything to spare her mother additional worry. But the truth spilled out instead, a quiet recounting of Amber's cruelty and the broken glasses. Her mother's face hardened, a rare anger flashing in her eyes. I'm calling the school on Monday. This has gone on long enough. Mom, please don't, Maya pleaded. It'll just make things worse. I can handle it. You shouldn't have to handle being bullied, Maya. Those girls should be suspended at minimum. Maya shook her head firmly. 2 more years and I'm out of there. I just need to keep my head down until then. She gestured to her workstation. This is what matters to me. This is my ticket out. Her mother sighed, the fight draining out of her. She crossed the small room and wrapped her arms around Maya, holding her close. Maya breathed in the familiar scent of diner grease and her mother's discount perfume. You're too much like your father, her mother murmured into her hair. Too smart for your own good and too stubborn to ask for help. Maya smiled against her mother's shoulder. He would have said that was a compliment. It is, her mother agreed, pulling back to study her daughter's face. But he would have also wanted you to stand up for yourself. She touched the bruise on Maya's cheek gently. Promise me you'll at least think about letting me talk to the principal? I promise to think about it, Maya said, which wasn't the same as agreeing. After her mother went to bed, Maya returned to her desk with renewed determination. The temporary fix for her glasses would work for now, but an idea had taken root, one that went far beyond simple repair. For the next 2 weeks, Maya worked obsessively, using every spare moment before school, after school, and late into the night. She scavenged additional parts from discarded electronics, wrote thousands of lines of code, and completely redesigned the frame of her glasses. Her mother worried about the dark circles forming under her eyes but recognized the focused intensity that had overtaken her daughter, the same expression her husband had worn when inspiration struck. What began as necessity evolved into innovation. Maya integrated miniature cameras into the frames, installed a tiny processor in one of the temples, and repurposed the LCD technology from the video glasses. She wrote software that could recognize text and translate it in real time, identify objects in the wearer's field of vision, and even detect basic emotional states through facial recognition patterns. Each component was a challenge, each line of code a puzzle to solve. But Maya persisted. When circuits failed, she rebuilt them. When her code crashed, she debugged it. When her soldering iron gave out, she used her lunch money to buy a new one instead of eating. The glasses became more than a project. They became a statement, a response to those who had tried to break her. On the night before the science fair, Maya made the final adjustments to what she now called her insight glasses. They looked almost ordinary, she'd been careful to design them that way, but contained technology that she knew was years ahead of anything currently on the market for consumers. She slipped them on, tapped the nearly invisible touch sensor on the temple, and watched as her vision was enhanced with a subtle overlay of information. For the first time in weeks, Maya smiled a genuine smile. Let Amber break these glasses, she thought. They would only come back stronger, just like their creator. The annual Westlake High Science Fair transformed the gymnasium into a showcase of student projects, most following predictable patterns. Baking soda volcanoes, plant growth experiments, and hastily constructed solar system models. Maya arrived an hour before the official opening, her project contained in a simple black case tucked under her arm. Unlike many of her peers, who had enlisted parents with graphic design skills or professional printing services, Maya's display was modest. A hand-lettered presentation board with neatly written explanations and diagrams drawn in precise detail. She selected a spot in the far corner, away from the main traffic flow. Not out of shame, but strategy. She wanted judges to approach her project after they'd seen the others, to create contrast. As she arranged her materials, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the gymnasium's trophy case. A slender girl with mousy brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing her best outfit. A second-hand blouse her mother had found at the thrift store and jeans without any visible wear at the knees. The insight glasses sat comfortably on her face, indistinguishable from ordinary eyewear to casual observers. "Remember to stand up straight when you present," advised Mrs. Williams, the science department head, as she made her rounds. She paused at Maya's station, glancing at the presentation board with a practiced eye. "Where's your project?" Maya opened the black case and removed what appeared to be an ordinary pair of glasses, identical to the ones she wore, except for a small blue light that pulsed gently at the temple. "These are my insight glasses," she explained, her voice soft but steady. "They're augmented reality glasses I designed to assist people with visual impairments and provide real-time information processing." Mrs. Williams raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "And you built these yourself?" "Yes, ma'am. From salvaged parts and custom code." Mrs. Williams made a non-committal sound and moved on to the next booth, where Bradley Cooper, son of the school board president, was setting up an elaborate display about hydrogen fuel cells that Maya suspected his engineer father had helped design. By 10 o'clock, the gymnasium buzzed with activity. Parents clutching coffee cups navigated the aisles while judges in business attire moved methodically from project to project, clipboards in hand. Maya stood beside her simple display, stomach fluttering with nerves but chin held high. She'd practiced her presentation dozens of times in the mirror, determined to convey confidence even if she didn't feel it. From across the room, Maya spotted Amber and her friends entering the gymnasium, their project's likely last-minute efforts to fulfill the mandatory science requirement. Amber caught Maya's eye and nudged her companions, whispering something that made them snicker. They made a deliberate show of pointing and laughing in Maya's direction before separating to set up their own displays. Maya took a deep breath, willing her hands to stop trembling. What they thought didn't matter anymore. Today wasn't about them, it was about what she had created. The first hour passed slowly. Most visitors breezed past Maya's booth, drawn to flashier displays with moving parts or colorful visuals. She gave her presentation twice. Once to a distracted parent who was clearly there out of obligation, and once to a freshman who seemed more interested in asking if Maya knew when lunch would be served. Then, just before noon, a woman in a charcoal gray suit approached Maya's booth. Her badge identified her as Dr. Eleanor Chun from Horizon Technologies, one of the judges from the local tech industry. She scanned Maya's presentation board with an expression of mild curiosity. "Insight glasses?" she read aloud. "Tell me about your project." Maya launched into her prepared explanation, describing how she had repurposed damaged components and written custom software to create glasses that could assist people with various visual processing needs. As she spoke, she noticed Dr. Chen's expression shift from polite interest to focused attention. "May I see them?" Dr. Chen interrupted, gesturing to the glasses on display. Maya nodded and handed them over carefully. "The interface activates with a double tap on the right temple," she explained. "The overlay appears subtle by design, to prevent visual distraction while providing contextual information." Dr. Chen put on the glasses and tapped as instructed. Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly as the system activated. She turned slowly, scanning the room through Maya's creation. The text recognition is identifying signs and posters throughout the gymnasium. Maya continued, warming to her subject. "If you look at any printed material, the glasses will offer to translate it into any of 12 languages. The object recognition can identify over 500 common items, making it useful for those with visual impairments. And the facial recognition system detects emotional states based on micro-expressions." Dr. Chin finished, still wearing the glasses. "This is remarkable. The response time is nearly instantaneous, and the overlay is intuitive without being intrusive." She turned back to Maya, studying her with new interest. "Did you really build this yourself?" "Without assistance." Before Maya could answer, two more judges joined Dr. Chun, drawn by her evident fascination. One was a professor from the State University's Computer Science Department. The other represented the school district's STEM initiative. Dr. Chun removed the glasses and handed them to her colleagues. "You need to see this," she said simply. As the university professor tried the glasses, his expression mirrored Dr. Chen's surprise. "The code for this must be incredibly sophisticated," he remarked. "How did you manage the power requirements for real-time processing in such a small form factor?" Maya explained her solution, a combination of efficient coding and repurposed lithium polymer batteries integrated into the temples. As she spoke, she became aware of a small crowd gathering around her booth. Among them were Mr. Hernandez, her physics teacher, whose expression of pride made her stand a little taller, and Principal Devlin, who was watching with undisguised astonishment. The crowd parted briefly, and Maya caught sight of Amber and her friends hovering at the edges, their expressions a mix of confusion and dawning realization. For a moment, their eyes met across the space. There was no triumph in Maya's gaze, no desire for revenge, only a quiet acknowledgement that sometimes the most profound response to cruelty is not retaliation, but rising above it. The afternoon passed in a blur of questions, demonstrations, and conversations with increasingly impressed judges and industry representatives. Dr. Chun returned multiple times, each visit bringing additional colleagues. By 3 o'clock, Maya's corner of the gymnasium had become the center of attention. "These could help my mother," said one of the district judges, emotion making his voice rough. "She has macular degeneration. Current assistive devices are clunky and expensive, but these look like normal glasses. The applications extend far beyond assistive technology," added Dr. Chun. "The real-time language translation alone could revolutionize international business and tourism." When the time came for the awards ceremony, Maya stood in the front row, still processing the events of the day. Principal Devlin took the microphone, building suspense as he announced the honorable mentions and third-place winner. When he named Bradley Cooper's hydrogen fuel cell project as the second-place finisher, a murmur of surprise rippled through the audience. Bradley's father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. And the first-place winner of this year's Westlake High Science Fair, Principal Devlin announced, with a project that our judges have described as graduate-level innovation and potential market disruption, is Maya Chun with her insight glasses. The applause was thunderous. Maya moved toward the stage in a daze, conscious of every eye in the room following her progress. As she accepted the trophy, a modest thing of plastic and faux gold, Principal Devlin leaned down to whisper, "I'd like to speak with you about what happened to your glasses 2 weeks ago. Mr. Hernandez told me everything." Maya nodded, but that conversation seemed distant and unimportant now. As she turned to face the audience, trophy in hand, she caught sight of her mother standing at the back of the gymnasium, still in her waitress uniform, tears streaming unashamedly down her face. Dr. Chun approached the stage, shaking Maya's hand for the cameras before handing her a business card. "Horizon Technologies would like to offer you our summer internship program," she said, her voice pitched for Maya alone. "And there's a scholarship opportunity we should discuss. Call me on Monday." As Maya descended from the stage, she was met not with the isolation she'd grown accustomed to, but with congratulations and questions and invitations. Classmates who had never spoken to her were suddenly eager to know more about her project. Teachers who had overlooked her quiet presence in their classrooms now viewed her with newfound respect. And there, at the edge of the dispersing crowd, stood Amber, flanked by her usual companions but looking somehow smaller than before. The smirk was gone, replaced by an expression Maya couldn't quite define. Perhaps the uncomfortable recognition that she had fundamentally misjudged someone, that the girl she had tormented possessed qualities she herself could not claim. Maya approached them, the trophy still clutched in her hands. The conversation around them quieted as students anticipated confrontation, perhaps expecting Maya to flaunt her victory or demand an apology. Instead, she simply said, "Thank you." Amber blinked in confusion. "For what?" Maya gestured to the glasses she wore, the ones born from the destruction of their predecessors. "Sometimes we need things to break before we can build something better." She didn't wait for a response but continued past them toward her mother, who enveloped her in a fierce hug that smelled of diner coffee and unconditional pride. "Your father would be so proud," her mother whispered against her hair. "So very proud." As they walked home together, Maya's trophy tucked under one arm and Dr. Chen's business card safely in her pocket, she understood that what had been broken, her glasses, her confidence, her sense of place in the world, had been rebuilt into something stronger. The scholarship would mean college without crushing debt. The internship would open doors her mother had never dreamed possible for her daughter. The glasses that had once symbolized her vulnerability had become the catalyst for her future. And while she couldn't see that future with perfect clarity just yet, for the first time in years, Maya looked forward to whatever came next, with eyes wide open.